I'm tired of what my people have done, what they continue to do. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of seeing people suffer. I'm tired of the inequality. And you ought to give a too.
Hey friend, white guilt and shame is a problem that white people experience because they cannot tolerate stressful situations, and they especially cannot tolerate situations where they're confronted about white supremacy or about race. So it's a form of dirty pain, which Menachem describes in his book, which is a type of pain where we are sitting in our wounds and refusing to heal them. So we are becoming cruel or violent. We are running away. We are just emotionally disassociating ourselves. And all of this creates more dirty pain. So white guilt and shame is a way that white people reassert their right to be white by just reprocessing trauma and pain and tension and conflict instead of confronting the reality that white supremacy is just deadly poison.
If I sound really angry and I have a heavy energy right now when I make this TikTok, I can't help it. Something happened in Texas, in a Texas school, elementary school to be exact. Just happened. As the school was getting ready for its school year, and teachers and admin were hanging up all kinds of welcoming posters and stuff on the walls. One of the posters was a picture of two hands holding on to each other. It didn't show the children, just their hands hanging on to each other. One was a black hand and one was a white hand. And some parents called and complained and said that that was politicizing and that it needed to come down. And the trustee of that school on the school board said, I agree. That's politicizing and that needs to come down. The picture of a black child and a white child holding hands needed to come down. I want everybody to pause for a second and think about this. And when this trustee was asked, well, what about all of the...
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? I hope you're doing fine, wherever you are today. Now, this is your presenter, Genetic Stories, and here again with another educational video. Now, you know, sometimes when white folks are confronted with, the question of being racist or the question of being responsible towards some things that they do, they tend to dismiss all these accusations, claiming that, slavery is something that went, racism is something that we don't need to talk about today, or still talks about that, and blah, 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 such a kind of things, right? But now sometimes it feels, until this happens to you, or until you sit down and understand the history, or until you critically view things in another perspective, or sit down and see things as a black person, that is called being empathetic. For a white person to sit down and see things as a black person, that's when they'll get to realize sometimes what a black child going to school have to deal with, what a black woman working in a group where there's a bunch of white people feels, and different intersectionalities that they go through. These makes them feel the same way. Now, there is a video where white people are trying to confront themselves for the things that they have been doing. Remember, I told you it takes time, or it takes a white person to sit down and reflect himself as a black person and understand the situations or certain times or certain things that black people go through. And in this video is going to be displaying how white people really feel about themselves. They feel tired. They feel, they don't feel good about what they've been doing or the system that they've been with. And now they're confronting each other. Remember, these are those days where the truth is coming out. Remember, we say that the truth shall set you free. And now this is the time. This is a great time where people are alive to envision. In regards to things that are happening in the United States today, this is so much revealing according to how they feel about themselves. I know it's not a good feeling. The cognitive dissonance that they've grown with, getting to know that it has never been about them, getting to know that they are not that much great, like the way they've always been told in history, right? So I want us to watch this video where they feel so bad about what they've been doing, and now they're coming all confronting each other out for the things that one of them or some of them did. Watch this video. I'll be back and then we'll be having this discussion together. Let's watch the video. I'll be back.
Bible verses that are now being hung around this public school. Isn't that politicizing? She refused to answer. I highly recommend, if you have not found on TikTok, conveniently, an 8-part presentation by Dr. Joy Angela DeGroy. I hope I said her name correctly. And it's called The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. I highly recommend you take the time to watch it. In one of the parts, it talks about a law that was passed. It was passed as a result of slave owners that beat their slaves to death because they didn't follow instructions. Do you know how hard it is to beat somebody until they die? What kind of rage has to be inside that person, and how much they are dehumanizing that beautiful soul in front of them? They passed a law that said, should this happen, that a slave not follow instructions and they are beat to death by their white slave owner, that slave owner cannot be held responsible. They cannot be convicted. They cannot be charged. They cannot be made to feel bad whatsoever because it was 100% the slave's fault. Okay? Do you want to know why I'm bringing that up? Because when you take a look at all these white nationalist evangelical Republicans today, including those on Moms for Liberty taking over these school boards, and you see their coldness, the steel coldness in their eyes when people come in and cry and plead and try to have fruitful conversation and get them to see the error of their ways when they behave like this, it's because according to Dr. DeGroy, most of the beatings until the slaves were killed were by white women beating black children to death. I want you to take that in so you understand, everybody understands what we're really dealing with here. There's not just segregation being attempted here. There's segregation reverting back to the kind of dominion white evangelicals had over every person with any kind of pigment. Okay? That's what's happening. So whatever was in those women's cold, dead hearts when they sat there beating these black children to death for not following instructions, that kind of DNA, whatever that evilness is what has infected the white evangelical Republican movement today. I said what I said.
Why is it that white folks support anti-blackness, race, and white supremacist culture in so many goddamn ways? Why is it that we support it through our silence, our defensiveness, our denial, that code of silence? Let's not talk about it. Let's ignore it. All that gymnastics, that defensiveness, the anger, the passive aggressiveness, the stereotyping, the overt, covert racism, all the that we do, the gaslighting, all that we do as white people. Why can't we just leave black people the alone? Why? Because we were taught that. It's our culture. White supremacist culture is American culture. It's European culture. We see ourselves as overseers. We ourselves as entitled to control and judge black people. White Americans wanted, back in the day, we demanded black people be segregated, right? So we segregated. Black people said, okay, great. We're going to make our own. They started doing great. What did we do? We burned their communities down to the ground. And you got to sit in your silence? You ought to be ashamed of yourself for not giving a every single one of you that can't talk about it, that spews narratives, stereotypes, denial, Gaslight. That's not their reality. Telling black people what the they should think, feel, do, be, you. Do better. Reject your training, your indoctrination. Question your own goddamn morality racially for once in your life. I'm tired.
I'll let you guys in on a little secret about white people. Every single white person knows somebody who is racist. Racist towards black people, racist towards Spanish people. We all know somebody. It might be our family member, it might be a distant relative, it might be a coworker, it might be an old friend, but we all know somebody. Personally, I come from a whole family of racist people. Yeah, my entire family is Republican too. Okay, my dad's parents are racist, and my mom's parents are racist. Okay, so I'm literally going against everything by talking about this. I am putting my own life on the line by speaking about this, and that's what we all should be doing. See, we could have ended this a long time ago, but people like my mom listened to these racist comments that their parents were making and didn't speak out against it. They kept their mouths shut, or they agreed with them silently, you know? But they didn't do anything about it. They continued to let this be passed on generation after generation. Oh, my mom never told me or taught me any racist ideologies. She continued to let it happen because she didn't speak out against it when her parents were talking about it, or my dad's parents were talking. So if you are against racism and you are against discrimination and you're a white person, you need to speak out about it. Otherwise, you are allowing this to continue generation after generation, and you are just as much a part of the problem as anybody else.
You heard him right. He said that white people could have stopped racism a long time ago by speaking out against it. He brought up his mother as a perfect example. He said, while she may not necessarily be racist, but she allowed racism to continue within, her parent circle and her husband, which is his dad, I guess, by not speaking out against it. And he says, if you're quiet about it as white people, you are pretty much condoning it as well. And so apparently he's going about breaking that and speaking out against it. And he is absolutely right. Racism could have ended a long time ago if white people would have stopped it, because oftentimes we in the black community get charged with stop racism. Oh, we have to do our part to stop racism, but we know we can't stop racism because we didn't start racism, and we know that black people have very little control of anything in this country, let alone stopping racism, right? So I agree with him 100%. It's going to take his folks to stop racism. But see, the problem is we know that they benefit greatly from racism. They always have, right? They've always benefited from racism, which is why they are where they are in society due to the racism that they created. Will white people ever speak out wholeheartedly as, a majority against racism? Probably not. But in the meantime, we as black people can do our part, and that's not vote for racism. Because if y'all notice, he said most of his family are Republican, but it's not just the Republicans. It's the Democrats too that are very racist. So we can stop voting for racism, and we can stop spending with racism as much as we can, right? And start pouring into our black owned businesses so that we can build something of our own. But again, I agree with him. It's on them to stop racism. Will they ever do that? Nah, probably not. But we should do all we can on our behalf to lessen the blow of racism.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Just hope that you're doing fine wherever you are now. Remember, when we talk about confronting racism, talking about these topics, sometimes it's difficult to talk about this. While I still applaud, I still congratulate white folks who realize that they're being on the wrong. And as I usually say, the first step of identifying, the first step of noting what the problem is to identify the root cause of the problem, or to identify what causes the problem so that you can find a way of solving it. There is no way we can move forward without knowing, without confronting all these things that were put to make people who look like you and I, to make their lives so hard. So I want us to watch this video. I think you've watched the video. Now what's happening is that it is always good to be empathetic, be on someone's hand, understand what they're really going through, be and feel what's really happening. And I think it is so much educational, it is so much important that we are having these talks, that we could find a platform where we could initially talk about this. Because for the longest time, the cognitive dissonance that white folks have grown with, it is way much of hand that having a time of talking about things that are really happening, I feel like it's so much important. And so, you know, when black folks come and talk about all this that is happening, some people usually take it as a joke, or some people don't see that these are things that are happening to black folks across the world, and it is happening. And so it is always important, while I'm not guaranteeing anyone that even if you confront a white person, or for example, you're a white person who understands history, who understands what black folks are going through, it is not easier for you to confront a fellow white person and they'll agree with you. It's about you as a person to teach people things the right way. You're a parent, you're a school teacher, you are somebody who is, you're a parent, you are always mandated to teach the kids the truth, because that's what they'll grow with. When they go to school, that's what they get to know. And that's the gospel that they get to walk with. That's the gospel that they get to teach. And that's the reality of all this. So it is always a learning moment for everyone. And I thank white folks who realize that sometimes the things that the United States is not usually fair for black people. All I know, when you try to confront them with this, they'll tell you, bro, you need to move on. This is something that really happened some times back. You don't need to talk about it. This is something that happened long time ago, so you don't need to talk about it. Well, it begins by identifying what the problem is. I congratulate white folks who are coming out. And I'm not saying that all white folks are bad people. No, we have a couple of beautiful white folks who recognize their problem. I mean, if you haven't watched a person like Dr. Tim Wise, he's a white person that says the truth the way it is, right? And he calls his fellow people out. He confronts them with the truth. He tells them the truth, because that's how it's supposed to be. Call a spade, not a big spoon. And for the longest time in history, black people have always wanted to talk about this. Well, it makes sense now for a couple of white folks who are coming out to talk about this. And so these talks are really important, and they help us. They really help us shape how the coming future generation will think. What about race in the coming next 10 years? It starts by sensitizing children, kids, to know that it is not right to do to somebody like this because they look the same way or they look the other way around, right? It is important to teach the kids, to make them appreciate how they look, who they are. If a person qualifies for a job, give them the job. The last time I checked, you said that the United States is a meritocratic country. So it means that you get what you worked for proportionally according to the work that you put. So all these people, as long as they gave the hard work, they deserve everything that is happening. So I hope this video finds you right. I hope this video finds you well wherever you are. Now, this is a presenter Jintuk Stories, and as you know, I wish to see you on my next video. If you're watching this video for the first time, I'll most definitely ask you to subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and really get to see what we can offer you. Until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.